Hey there, Max. Hope you're having a great day today. Here's your video lesson. Here's your 4 things I'm going to talk about. I'll talk about those 4 things, and if you have questions at the end or want me to look at anything, feel free to shoot a message on over as usual, and I'll do my best to answer. So, cool, let's get to it. So just number 1 is just a real quick, we already kind of talked about it earlier this week, is going over those 4-note sequences. I sent a video over to you, so I won't waste time doing that in this video, but go ahead and keep on working on those 4-note sequences. And then what we'll talk about once those 4-note sequences get comfortable in your fingers, and then we'll talk about how to combine that with the other sequences that we've done so far. So that one's kind of already taken care of, the videos on there for you to watch, so do that for point 1. Point 2 is, now that we kind of got some of the bar, I kind of checked out your bar chords and see kind of how they're sitting. It looks like this one right here and this one right here, these 2 types are looking pretty good. So now it's time for us to have the talk about the cage system. The cage system is super useful, and it's basically the Rosetta Stone of this thing. You learn the cage system and you get real familiar with it and kind of learn its ins and outs, you will have a great understanding of how the fretboard works and how to be more creative with the guitar and think outside the box, or think out of the things that you normally do. And it's just really, there's no other substitute for learning this system. Other people, I've seen videos out there where people claim, oh, I got the alternative to it, and if there was a great alternative, everyone else would use that. So if I don't like reinventing the wheel, I did it one time myself. I didn't enjoy that process, so I don't recommend doing that. So that's what I'll take for another day. Anyway, so what the cage system is, and I sent you out some handouts for this from this book right here. This is the book it comes from, a great book on how it works. And because cage system is easy, if you go start looking up YouTube videos on it, it's really easy to kind of get a misunderstanding of what it's used for and get even more confused than you already are before you start watching those videos. So what the cage system is, and this is the handout I sent over to you, I'll read it, part of it. There you go. In simple terms, cage is a way of taking the open chords we've learned when we first picked up the guitar, C, A, G, E, D. Should close the book. Here we are now. And moving them up and down the neck, enabling us to play the same chord in several different places on the fretboard. C. Also a C. Also a C chord. 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 If I can do it on this guitar. Also a C chord. I guess not. So those are all C chords. If someone with perfect pitch who can hear notes and know exactly what they are before having any sort of reference point, with someone playing and saying, hey, this is this. If someone walked by and heard me do that, they go, hey, Doug played a bunch of C chords up and down the neck, right? Then you have to play guitar, and they just know those are all C chords. Because you're taking these shapes, C, A, G, we'll use this finger here for the C for that, and then E, and then D, and we find where the root note of each one, the home bass note for each one of those chords, and we move that to where all the C's are on the fretboard. That's why it's important to learn all your note names on root 5, root 6. That's why I was talking with Tyler that one time, and he said, oh yeah, it's important to learn all your notes on root 5 to root 6. It really unlocks, you gotta start by learning those notes, and then that helps you learn all the chords across the fretboard, amongst other things that it'll help you do. So going back to this sentence right here, let's see here. But this definition doesn't do it justice in the way that experienced guitar players can fully utilize caged. There we go. I use caged there, right? I only use caged. I use caged as my reference points. Now, obviously, that's way beyond what we're going to talk about for today, but this is going to give you a little taste of how cage can be used to open up the fretboard and see where everything is. Like all those like frets were lighting up to me because I practiced those chords so much. But you got to start somewhere. So basically, what the cage is, it takes all the open chords that you've done: C, A, G, E, and D, and it allows you to take those templates. These are all template shapes, and as long as you know the root note of where you're trying to go to, you'll be able to play whatever chord you want. I can do that in any key. I can do C, D chord, I can do D chord all over the fretboard, I can do F chord all over the fretboard because I knew these 5 shapes. Wait a minute, that sounds awful familiar. 5 shapes, wait a minute, pentatonics has how many boxes? Wait a minute, that might be a connection we'll make later on. First starting though, the cage shapes. Right, so flipping over here to the first page, we're just going to start at the beginning. I remember working with my teacher. I studied his book for years. I studied with Ricardo's book. God, like undergraduate, I started with that, and then I did it for those 7 years, and then went to go study with him. And I was like, Master, I've read your book, and I've spent so much time learning your method before I got here. And he's like, well, sounds like we start on page 1 then, shouldn't we? And we started on page 1, and we just went through the whole thing. Even though I knew some of it, I didn't know all of it, and there were hidden things in there that he that were never explained in the book. This is like, you know, some esoteric knowledge that he was saving for when people could come see him. Anyway, so what we're going to do here, we have chapter 1. Right, and what we're going to do is we're going to go through the chords C, A, G, E, and D. And if you put those chords back, so C chord, A form, right? They spell the word caged. That's where it comes from. That's where the word caged comes from. From the C chord, A, G, E, and D. So that's kind of in a nutshell of what cage is. We're using those 5 shapes that really spell the word caged, and we're going in that order up the fretboard, right? So, for example, C chord, right? And then we go to A form, right? So this is a C form, C chord. Then I go to A form. Now wait a minute. Notice right here, hey, wait a second. That looks an A chord. So C shape, A shape, because this looks like an A chord. Next letter, you guessed it, it's going to be G. I'm going to go here, G, wait a second. If I put a capo right here, wait 1 second. If I put a capo here, hey, it's a C chord. How about that? And I just use my first finger as the bar right there. That chord's kind of tricky, so we'll spend some more time talking about how to actually use that one efficiently when we're practicing. So we're gonna do this one form at a time. If you try to learn all 5 in one sitting or within a week or 2 or a month, you get overwhelmed. It's too much to remember. I had a guy one time come in, he's like, Doug, teach me all 5 pentatonic boxes. I'm gonna do 1 month. I'm gonna do all 5 pentatonic boxes and all 5 cage chords, and then I'm gonna go off my own and do my own thing. I was like, sorry, man, slow. I did that, and then came back and was like, 1 week he came back with the next week. He's like, it's like on paper, it's like 5 shapes and 5 boxes, but really it's years of study. So it just takes a long time to get all this completely under your fingers, assimilated, that you can actually use it. So first thing when you're learning this stuff is like acquisition of knowledge, right? Can you learn this shape, know it exists? Can you move it around? Second is experimentation. Okay, now I'm gonna take a song and kind of play around with that idea. And third is creativity. Can I freely create with this knowledge, right, that I learned back here? So that's the order that we gotta go in to do this stuff. So if you look in the first page of the handout right here, we have what he says is a D chord, right? And this rectangle, or sorry, the square box right here, that is what's called your root note. Every single one of these cage shapes has a root note, the home base note of the chord that gives its name, right? That's why I want you to learn root 5 and root 6 so we can find these chords more efficiently. If I play a C chord right here, strings 5 down to 1, I mean, obviously I'm not playing that 6th string, but say if I did, right? Say if I played that 6th string right there, that's an E, right? So if I'm playing a C chord and that's an E, yeah, it's part of the chord, but it's not the home base C note that I'm looking for. So if I play here on the 5th string, 5 down to 1, if I name that note right there, so go here, okay, Doug said this is an A string, A sharp, B, C. Hey, wait a minute, there's the note C right there. Oh, it's a C chord, that's the home base note. So therefore, we can say that chord is a root 5 chord. So we can say C form, and he even says it in here, this is funny thing, the poor man's capo. I don't have $20 for a capo. I can use my first finger. I'm a better guitar player. Anyway, so then we have a C form C chord, right? So we have a C there, so right there, C form C chord, C form chord, right? This shape right here will always and forever be root 5. It cannot all of a sudden magically become root 6, the same way that all of a sudden magically it cannot become a minor chord. This will always be a major shape. This will always be a root 5. End of story. Not going to change unless we do something drastic and retune our guitar for what God knows what reason we'd ever want to do that one for, right? So that is a C form C chord, root 5 all day long. It's always going to be a C form. It's always going to be root 5, right? So what I do then, I go, okay, I'm going to switch my fingering up here. So my finger 2, 3, and 4, okay? C, scooch up, hey, wait a minute. That's my root note right there. That's the home bass note. If I play that and put my poor man's capo down, I got myself a C sharp chord right there. If I move this up to to my pinky, where my pinky's at the 5th fret, my bar's at the 2nd fret, I'm no longer at C sharp anymore. I am at D. And if I play this chord and put this chord in my looper, I'll prove it to you that it is a D chord. Right? So there I kind of went overboard a little bit, and I played all 5 shapes of D up the neck. But when I was playing there, this sounded exactly like the D chord that's right here. It sounded the same chord that is. It sounds slightly different to my ear because you stack notes differently, right? So what you got to learn is, I'm going to take a song. This brings me to point 4. So you want to practice this shape right here, right? It's not like he says in here. It's a little awkward to play. As far as like, when I see it in like rock songs or that sort of thing, John Frusciante uses it. A lot of those kinds of players will use it. Like if you've ever heard that, how's it? I forget how the intro. That's actually D. Ba da da da. Be da da da. Forget the actual part. Right? Under the bridge, that's what he's using there. So it's a great way of getting away from just playing this chord, which were also cage chords as well. But it's a great way of getting away from the same old voicings you do every single time. And like he says in the book right here, I 100% agree with him. It's the way to it's a way to be more creative and move around the neck. What does he say in here? What does he say? Right. Oh, let's see here. It allows you to play in just like different positions of the neck. That way, if you're playing, like, say, if your friends are playing, like, and you start doing. That Jerry Garcia style guitar playing, that's what he's doing. Right? That's what they're doing. They're just moving around the neck with those partial cage shapes. But don't worry about that yet. Just kind of that's where it's going to end up going. Is by you playing like cool little like look at that one. Right, playing like little figures up the neck to spice up your guitar playing. First order of business though is getting used to playing that cage shape. When I was in college, I had to take piano lessons for a couple of semesters because we all had to take a little bit of piano, just kind of know how it worked and kind of see chords and things. And I used to have this she was like a Russian teacher or something, and she played these like Rachmaninoff pieces, like Rachmaninoff Concerto No. 2, these massive chords, and they were beautiful sounding. And she would just like go to the piano and like the fingers would spread like this far apart, and she played these awkward shapes up and down the neck. And I was like, how the earth did you do that? And she was like, oh, in Russian Siberia, we would be freezing in there, and you had to hit the piano real hard to keep your fingers warm. And the way she would learn those chords, those big shapes, and I took this to my heart, and I went to go practice this way, is she's like, you got to practice getting into it. You got to practice on, off. wax on, wax off. There's a reason why Daniel-san had to sand the fence and wax the car for like days straight, because you had to get that in your muscle memory. So what I would do for this shape right here, I'd do this D form, or say the C form D chord, lift the chord, back, oh, there we go, back on, lift. Notice I'm trying to keep the shape in midair. Just, you ask for things to do that for practice, to get in the routine. This would be one of them right here. It's one thing to get into one shape over and over again. It's another thing to do it in a song. And that's the next step, would be take it into that 2-chord jam groove of You Don't Know How It Feels. This is a great jam song. Oops. So I did this, for example. Right? If you were to go to a Dead concert or like any sort of like, Fish, Leftover Salmon, those kinds of bands, they'll have a 2-chord jam like this going on for 20 minutes. Ooh, sorry, wrong key. Right? Your assignment for next time is, can you play this shape to be between A and E without dropping the ball? Start slow first. Right? And then later on we'll talk about more what to do with them. But the first order of business is, can you play one kind of chord, like a D chord or F chord, can you play it all over the fretboard? So the one, you already have your A form, E form, and the next one to add is the E form, and then we have 2 more forms to learn, and then you'll have complete coverage of one chord over the fretboard, and then we just rinse and repeat all over the fretboard. Awesome, man. So work on that concept for me. Like I said, if you want to shoot me over a video of you playing through any of that stuff, you're more than welcome to. If not, I will see you next Friday. Take care.